Andrew's life. I have a interesting story for you guys, which is coming out of Oklahoma. Now, this story, it's a quick one. It's gonna be about a woman that had a tiny home built, and well, her tiny home was stolen. And I'm not gonna do a lot of talking right now. I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna play the story so you guys can hear exactly what happened to her, and then I'm gonna come back with my commentary. So I'm gonna play the story, and then I'll come back with a commentary.
We're hearing from a woman whose tiny home was taken from her land in Sapulpa in the middle of the night. She told me she's been in a legal battle with the builders, and now with the home gone, everything has become more complicated.
It's unbelievable. It was just unbelievable, especially since I've been kind of fighting this battle with the tiny home people, and then this happens.
Monica Badzinski says her tiny home was stolen nearly 2 weeks ago from her property in Sapulpa.
And it's just been heartbreaking for years now.
She says she moved into her dream home in 2022 and only had the chance to live in it for about 3 months.
I found out the inspections that were supposed to happen on the home didn't happen. So the inspection company told me, well, they advised me probably best to get out of the home. We don't know if it's safe to live in.
From there, she says a legal battle ensued.
I left the home and tried to get the company who built the tiny home to fix the issues. After I didn't hear anything from them, I sought legal counsel. And eventually legal counsel was like, you might need to mitigate costs, mitigate some of your losses, and sell the tiny home. And then it was like, try to sell the tiny home in the land.
She says it was a devastating spot to be in. And now with the home missing altogether, it's become even more complicated.
And then this happened just 2 weeks ago, where the tiny home was stolen off of a property where the gate was locked. The home was strapped. It was hooked up to electrical. It was on center blocks.
Badzinski says all she wants is to have the home back and has been doing everything she can to find it.
We're thinking that it's still here in the community because of the vehicles that were driven. And it's a big tiny home, a big blue tiny home.
If you know anything about the case, you're asked to call the Creek County Sheriff's Office. Monica's also off.
All right, folks, you guys saw the video. Let's have a discussion about what you guys saw on the video. For starters, let this video be a cautionary tale. I mean, there's a growing number of people that are leaving the city and they're moving out in the country. You got a lot of people purchasing tiny homes because typically they're a little cheaper than purchasing a stick-built home. You got a lot of people moving out in the country, buying acres of land for homesteading, or, you got some people that don't even want to homestead. They just want to live on acres of land because they like to be by themselves. They don't really want to be bothered with a bunch of people. They don't even want to be around a bunch of people. You got people moving out in the country because, most people assume that the country is going to be safer than the city, which in most cases it is. It's going to be safer, it's going to be quieter, and typically you get more bang for the buck. Your property taxes are low and a whole bunch of other benefits. But even though you may choose to reside out in the country, you still have to have your wits about yourself. You still have to have an element of street smarts. Because not all country folk are good folk. Not all country folk are good folk. You got some people out in the country, man, they just as criminal as anybody in the city. They're just as criminal as Pookie in the hood. Some of them are more criminal than Pookie in the hood. Now, I would say the people who stole that woman's home like that, they most likely knew her. They knew enough about her to know her schedule. They knew the home was vacant. They most likely knew how that home was built, which is how I think they were able to drive off with her home without drawing a whole lot of suspicion. Now, I'm going to also assume that she probably did not have any neighbors close by. At least not close enough to where they would be able to look over on her property and see what's going on and be able to alert local authorities in the event that they saw something going on that shouldn't have been going on. Which is one major which is one major setback in living out in the country so far to where your neighbors are like a half a mile or a mile away. Now, for me, I love country living, but at the same time, I prefer to live in a community to where there's neighbors. Now, I don't want my neighbors super close, but I want my neighbors close enough to where when they look over, they can see my house. If there's people over doing things that they shouldn't be doing, they can see it and they can call authorities. And vice versa. I can look over at their house, and if there's any activity going on the exterior that I think is suspect, I can call the local authorities. Now, obviously, another disadvantage of living out in the country is even when you do call local authorities, it's not going to be like being in the city where they're going to be at your house within 5 minutes. I mean, they may not be at your house for 20 minutes because, depending on where you live, the closest sheriff station might be 15 minutes down the road. So I would say, whenever you buy a piece of property like that woman did, say what she should have done was she should have gave one or two people in the area her phone number. She should have exchanged phone numbers with them and maybe offered them a few dollars to where they can maybe on a daily basis just drive down to her property and keep an eye on things. Just make sure nobody's in the house. Make sure no one that does not belong on her property is on her property. But then again, I don't know how far in the country that she was. I don't know how far her neighbors were. If her neighbors were super far away, then she probably wouldn't have been able to do that because they would have been too far away. Which is one of the reasons why I don't like living somewhere to where I can't even see my neighbors. I prefer to live somewhere to where I can at least see my neighbors. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised. Now, the people that drove off with their home, I wouldn't be surprised if at some point she may have had a conversation with these people, thinking that these people were good folk. And she probably told these people a little too much personal information, which is one of the reasons why they felt comfortable enough to go on her property and steal her home. And notice how the thief was not by themselves. They had another person to assist them. So, yeah, I'm going to assume that, she probably got a little too comfortable. She probably told these people a little too much information about her house and about herself and about everything that was going on with her or why she couldn't be in that house, which is a no-no. I don't care how nice someone may appear to be. Until you really, really get to know a person, you gotta refrain from telling that individual anything super personal. Don't tell them about your work schedule. Don't be sharing anything financial about yourself. Like, ideally, if you go on a vacation or something, ideally, you would want to let one or two of your close by neighbors know, hey, I'm going to be gone. Just keep an eye on my house. Here's my number. Now, I've done that plenty of times. But I would say before you even do that, you know, maybe spend a couple of months at your residence and get a, this kind of, I don't know, this kind of get a feel for the community. Make sure your neighbors are actually good people before you tell them that you're going to go somewhere on vacation. I guess stay in the community long enough to be able to read the room a little bit. Hopefully, I'm making sense. And I'm sorry that this woman had to sell her home because I know that her plan was to most likely keep the home, have a homestead, or whatever she was going to do. That was her initial plan. Now, for those of you that are looking at buying a tiny home, and maybe you're looking to, I don't know, travel extensively, and you just have this tiny home to come home to whenever you want to get off the road for a little bit, I would say after watching this video, you might want to think twice. You might want to think twice. If I was in the market to buy a tiny home and I were to see something like the video that we just saw a little bit ago, if I knew I was going to be doing extensive traveling, I probably would refrain from purchasing a tiny home. I probably would purchase a regular home sitting on a permanent structure. Or two, I wouldn't purchase a home at all. I mean, I understand that tiny home is going to be a little cheaper than a permanent home. The tiny home thing would allow somebody like her to have a larger lot. I get all that. But what good is any of that going to do if you come home from your vacation or whatever and your house is gone because someone stole it? And another thing you got to bear in mind when it comes to these tiny homes is, unlike a regular home, a tiny home is going to be treated like a vehicle. Now, obviously, I'm not an insurance agent, so for those of you that are in the market to buy a tiny home, you might want to consult with the insurance agent of how they treat a tiny home. In the event that your tiny home comes up missing, how are they going to treat it? Are you going to get back the full amount of money that you paid for that tiny home back, or are they going to give you back a rate lower because they're going to factor in depreciation? Now, I could be wrong, and hopefully for the sake of this lady, I am wrong, but I'm going to assume that whatever money she gets back off of that tiny home is going to probably be minus depreciation, which means she's not going to get as much money back as she paid for the tiny home. And again, I hope I'm wrong, but the way insurance companies work, that's probably what's going to happen. And that's assuming that she even had insurance on the structure in the first place, which I hope the hell she did. So I wish that woman the best of luck in locating her tiny home. And I wish her the best of luck in being able to get the thieves prosecuted to the fullest. And obviously, for those of you that are in that area and you know what's going on, do the right thing, call the authorities. I mean, you can always be anonymous. I mean, she's offering $500, which, life is hard. A lot of people don't have a lot of money. I mean, she's been fighting some legal. I'm not. No, never mind. I'm not even gonna say it. But anyways, she's offering $500, which, to be honest, $500 is not gonna be enough money for anybody to be willing to go out their way and work with authorities. All right, folks. That's all I got for this one. I think you guys get the point of the story. So until next time, stay blessed. I'll catch you guys on the next one.